Doctors and nurses of Reddit, what is the most obvious case of a patient faking it you have ever seen? Maybe not the most obvious in conventional terms, but perhaps the funniest story involving faking it from my work in prison healthcare. Every morning, the prisoners get a chance to move mostly freely around the prison to go to their workplaces, or visits, or healthcare if they're on daily meds, etc. Often, if people are unwell, they will come to healthcare and get a sick note so they can get a day off work without being penalized. Well, one day, about 30 to 40 lads turn up at our healthcare window complaining of headaches, stomach aches, a few claiming to have vomited, although no confirmation from any of the officers, and the really weird part was that every single one of them was from the same prison wing. We put in a security report, worried something fishy was going on. Turned out that one of the guys on that wing had family appearing on the Jeremy Kyle show, UK's version of Jerry Springer, and all the guys wanted to stay in their cells and watch it. Not gonna lie, it's actually kinda sweet. I've seen some patients faking seizures, but not like this guy. Arms and legs shaking, not the head or torso, looks more like a rain dance than a seizure. Talking through it, NeuroDoc happens to be close by and comes in the room when we call for him. "Stop that," he says. Patient replies, "I can't." Doc puts his hand around the patient's legs, hard and firm, and says, "Stop." The patient stops. It's a miracle. As a radiographer, my favorite is always the kids who are trying to milk some extra time off school. They'll come in with their helicopter parent flinching and sometimes crying as you move their arm into the required positions for x-rays. Then use the affected arm to push themselves up out of the chair when they leave. Or if it's an ankle, they'll enter the x-ray room cringing and not putting it on the floor, then will jump off the x-ray table. Nice try, kids. No plaster for you. Not so much obvious, but definitely outrageous. I was a midwifery student working in an antenatal clinic when a 15-year-old girl, her 15-year-old boyfriend, and his mother came in for an initial appointment. The first appointment always involves sourcing as much history information as possible, setting up an initial plan, and then checking that the baby's heartbeat is tracking as expected. The family was very friendly, and the pregnancy was obviously unplanned. His family had taken the young girl in, and she looked very uncomfortable. The boy was daunted but doing his best to be involved. When we got to checking the heartbeat, I wasn't able to find anything. The midwife supervising me couldn't either. We were concerned she may have miscarried, but brought in the most experienced midwife to check. We had been treating this as a purely medical issue until both the supervising midwife and I took a step back and noticed that while the boy and his mother were distraught, the girl was looking more ashamed than anything else. It was the first indication that something wasn't right. As a group, they all went up to see the doctors in another building, and I had to head back to university for class. The next morning, I found out that after an hour with the doctors, she confessed that she had made it all up so she could move to Australia with her boyfriend so they could stay together. I'm a midwife. We had a lady who would come in every few weeks with a new guy claiming she was in labor or experiencing a miscarriage. Of course, we had to take her seriously every time, even though we knew she wasn't, so we'd scan her, etc., only to tell her that she's not pregnant and isn't experiencing labor or a miscarriage, thankfully. She'd then turn to her guy and say that modern medicine is unreliable and he should just trust her instinct and will he help her raise the baby. The guy would often become afraid, how am I gonna raise this baby? What are the chances a scan is wrong, etc. We'd reassure him that 100% she isn't pregnant. They'd argue, break up, and she'd be back a few weeks later. Also, she'd come in by ambulance. Every time. Edit. FYI, this isn't in the UK. Everything is free for her. We all paid taxes, which means that we're all entitled to free healthcare, so she isn't paying a penny for any of this. Also, we've tried to make psych referrals, but if the patient doesn't wish to engage, we can't force them to unless they are in danger of themselves or other people. You weren't pregnant 2 weeks ago when we saw you with the other guy, and you're not pregnant now. My friend told me this story, and it's probably the worst account of Munchausen by proxy I've ever heard of. Lady came in the ER with what was later revealed as fake IDs for her and her baby. Baby was puking blood, so she was taken in fast. Strangely, apart from the blood puking, the baby didn't seem that bad. CBC revealed normal results, which was definitely not expected. Doc found this suspicious and had the blood analyzed to reveal it wasn't the baby's. They finally realized the woman was making her baby drink her Diva cup to make her sick and get attention. Edit. I realized from some comments I haven't specified what happened in the end. The woman bolted with the child when she realized she was busted. They gave her description to the police, and it's in their hands now. I'm a crusty old nurse and have heard some weird shit in my life. I usually shrug at Reddit posts. This made me yell, fuck, and scare my dog. Ugh. Faking being unconscious while peeking. Hard sternal rub. Presto. No longer unconscious and very angry. sternal rub is where you basically grind your knuckles into the middle of the chest, right? A patient who came in with seizures. It was questionable. Began to have one when the doctor was in the room, but noticed the patient's movement slow and they opened one eye a teeny bit to look at him and make sure he was watching and then resumed shaking. Discharged after basic workup. I forgot where I read it here, but someone told me the story of a doctor that when confronted with his exact scenario would say, you know, it's not a real seizure because they're not pissing themselves. Then on cue, the patient would piss themselves. I've had patients fake seizures to try and get admitted. They're usually careful to make sure everyone's watching before thrashing around on the stretcher. If you turn around, sometimes they stop and then will carefully peek at you to see if you're still paying attention. After the reports of people peeing while faking seizures and unconsciousness in this thread, I'm pretty convinced that no one ever mentally grows up past the age of 7. Having a seizure while doing the worm on the ground and telling me that only Dilaudid ever stopped these. Yeah, narcotics don't break seizures. You have no idea what a seizure looks like, and you can't talk while having a tonic-clonic seizure. Nobody's buying your shit. Obstetrics here. We had a 27-week pregnant girl come in claiming her water had broke and she was in preterm labor. Tested with a dipstick, not positive for amniotic fluid, but she was in our HDU just in case. She went to the loo and came out with a soaking pad and tried the "my water's just broke" thing again. Yes, she'd run it under the tap. Then we have a lovely chat about how amniotic fluid and water do not smell at all alike, and she stopped doing it for a couple weeks and started faking PV bleeds by putting her lipstick on her pads instead. I wonder what she was trying to accomplish. Had a patient complaining and passing bladder stones. We heard them go plink in the bowl. Meds galore, of course, those things hurt. We sent the stones for testing, turned out the joke was on us. They came back as gravel. Even the lab said, not usually found in human anatomy. No more drugs for you, lady. Took me a while of wondering how she got gravel in her bladder just to realize that she was just dropping them into the bowl by hand to make the sound, laughing out loud. Not me, but a fellow nurse used to work in the ER in Albuquerque. Had a lady come in with severe pain from her varicose veins, seeking opiates. He washed the red marker lines off part of her leg and told her to leave. I love that in this thread we've had an addict who was smart enough to convincingly fake bladder stones and drop small gravel into her urine, and one that was dumb enough to draw varicose veins on her leg in pen. Two extremes. ER nurse here. So many people faking seizures in our waiting room in hopes of getting a room quicker. Most recent and funny one I had was a family member running over in a panic yelling, "He's having a seizure!" I hopped out of my chair and took a couple quick steps only to witness a full-grown man leaning against a wall, shaking it in a way that can only be described as terribly coordinated dance move, whilst peeking at me to see if I looked worried as he shook his head back and forth. I stopped in my tracks and said, "You'll see a doctor soon," with the most energy I could muster, and retreated to my other tasks in exasperation. I had a girl on my team at my previous job. When she didn't feel like working, she would drop on the floor and fake a seizure. We picked up straight away that she was faking it. When she realized no one was paying her any attention, she would stop flopping about and get back to work. Former L&D nurse here. Watching someone try fake labor is quite funny. They will push on the contraction monitor to try and make it look like they're having contractions, but they look like squares, not hills like normal contractions. They never have them if you're in the room watching, or they scream and holler while pushing on it. You can't fake labor. What the heck is the benefit to faking labor? Little girl says she can't see a thing. Swears she needs glasses. Do any of your friends have glasses? Yeah, Chloe and Courtney have them. Big E. No, I can't see it. I put 0.00 powered lenses on. Oh, I can see it now. Here, Mom, this is how blind your kiddo is. My niece did this. My poor sister sat in the exam feeling like an awful parent, thinking, oh my God, she can't see anything. No wonder she's struggling at school. How could we not realize? Until the optometrist had her try on the glasses that my niece insisted made her vision miraculously sharp. Former EMT here. We had a patient who had a plethora of actual problems, but she would fake having seizures in order to get into the emergency room. I had heard dozens of ridiculous stories about this patient, so when I finally got called to her house for the first time, I was actually a little excited to see what she was all about. When we got there, I began setting up EKG leads and getting vitals from her while my partner was getting the stretcher out. My partner yells from the truck, "Hey, be careful. Sometimes she likes to fall out of her seat when she has seizures." No more than a second after he says this, our patient just so happens to tip right out of her seat. I swear I almost saw her smile as she did it.
Watch our other videos and subscribe cause you're not a scrub.